بالفيديوهات الثلاثة الماضية رحنا برحلة غريبة بعالم مستقبلي بعيد مع سيفيريان. شفنا نقابة المعذبين والمكتبة اللانهائية والحدائق النباتية وشوارع مدينة نسس وجدار العظيم اللي يفصلها عن العالم، وشفنا قرية سولتس والبيت المطلق ومدينة ثراكس وجبال تملأها آثار مملكة محاها الزمن وجسر متحركة تنتهي بقلعة بناها عملاق وآلي. وخلال الرحلة هذه قابلنا تكنولوجيا ميتة وكائنات فضائية وآليين وعمالقة فوق الأرض وتحت الماء ومخلوقات تبي تقتص من سيفيريان وأهمها الألزبو. الحين وصلنا للكتاب الرابع والأخير بالسلسلة The Citadel of the Autarch، قلعة الأوتارك. وكالعادة بنهاية الفيديو راح تشوفون مقتطفات من محادثتي مع أصحاب بودكاست ريدينج جين وولف. بسم الله نبدأ. تشتد الحرب بين جيش الأوتارك والآسكيانز اللي سيفيريان يبي ينضم لها.
ليست الحرب تجربة جديدة، بل هي عالم جديد، وسكانها أشد اختلافا عن البشر حتى من فاموليموس ورفاقها.
وسيفيريان بطريقة لهم يصادف جندي ميت يبحث بين أشياء ولاقي بقايا طعام ورسالة كان المفروض يرسلها لزوجته.
وضعت الرسالة نصف المكتملة جانبا ونظرت إلى الرجل الذي كتبها. لم تخطئه رصاصة الموت، وها هو الآن يرمق الشمس بعينين زرقاوين خاليتين من الحياة، إحداهما شبه مغمضة والأخرى مفتوحة بالكامل.
وسيفيريان طبعا يحاول يعيد للحياة بما تبقى من المخلب، وفعلا ينجح. هل السبب هو لتجربة المخلب بعد تحطم الجوهرة اللي حوله، ولا لأن بعد قراءة رسالة الجندي حس بإنسانيته فقرر يحاول يعيده مجددا، ولا كان سيفيريان ببساطة حاس بالوحدة لدرجة أنه يبي رفيق؟ ممكن كل ما سبق. الجندي يكون مشوش طبعا وغير قادر على الكلام، لكنه قادر على المشي حتى لو بصعوبة. فعلا يصير رفيق طريق سيفيريان لفترة بسيطة، لكن هنا بالمقابلة هذه يكون في وحدة من ألغاز الكتاب اللي ما انحلت ليومنا هذا.
لم يكن وجهه يشبه وجه يونس بحق، فقد كان وجه الأخير طويلا وضيقا، لكنني في إحدى اللحظات حين لمحته من الجانب أدركت فيه شيئا يذكرني بيونس لدرجة جعلتني أشعر وكأنني رأيت طيفا من الماضي.
يقول سيفيريان إن لوهلة اعتقد أن الجندي هذا هو يونس. للتذكير، يونس هو صديق سيفيريان وأحد بحارين الفضاء الآلي اللي تمت معالجته بأجزاء بشرية حقيقية، وهو اللي لما كانوا بالبيت المطلق دخل غرفة المرايا ونقلته لمكان ما. بس ليش حس بيونس؟ ما ندري، هذا هو اللغز. سيفيريان يصير يكلمه عن كل شيء، عن الأشخاص اللي مروا عليه برحلته وعن لعنة ذاكرته الحديدية، ويقول:
لا أعلم إن كنت تؤمن بالشمس الجديدة، بل لست واثقا إن كنت أنا نفسي قد آمنت بها يوما، لكن إن كان مقدرا لها أن توجد فستكون هي المصلح قادما من جديد. وما المصلح وما الشمس الجديدة إلا اسمان لكيان واحد، وهنا يحق لنا أن نتساءل لماذا يدعى ذلك الكيان تحديدا بالشمس الجديدة؟
الاثنين يوصلون لمخيم الباليرينز، وهم الراهبات اللي يبي سيفيريان يعيد لهم المخلب. بهذا المخيم هم قاعدين يعالجون كل أطراف الحرب، سواء الآسكيانز أو جيش الأوتارك، ويكتشفون أن سيفيريان والجندي اللي معهم حمى، وفعلا يعالجونهم. والجندي تعود له قدرته على الكلام وسميه سيفيريان مايلز. سيفيريان ما زال مصر أن يونس بمكان ما داخل الجندي هذا، بالرغم من كلامه بأنه ما يعرفه وعدم تصديقه بأن سيفيريان عاد للحياة أصلا. لكن سيفيريان يختم بالتالي:
يونس، أعلم أنك تصغي إلي. أنا لا ألومك، فالرجل قد مات وأنت ما زلت حيا، وأنا أتفهم ذلك. لكن يا يونس، لقد رحلت يولنتا، رأيتها تموت أمام عيني، وحاولت إعادة الحياة إليها باستخدام المخلب، لكنني فشلت. ربما كانت زائفة أكثر من اللازم. لا أدري، سينبغي عليك البحث عن شخص آخر.
لغز غريب. في كمان داخل المخيم بنت اسمها فويلا، وفي شابين يبون يخطبونها، فطلبت من كل واحد منهم أنه يروي قصة، وصاحب القصة الأفضل راح تقبل فيه. وبالتالي تطلب من سيفيريان الحكم، وتقول له أن حتى هي راح تسرد قصة، ولو فازت ما راح تتزوج أحد منهم. ما راح أتطرق للقصص المذكورة هذه، لكن راح أتكلم أكيد عن نتيجة المسابقة بينهم. بأحد الليالي تجي أحد راهبات المخيم تجلس جنب سيفيريان. سيفيريان يقول لها كل شيء عن قدرته على إعادة الإحياء، وعن المخلب، كيف إنه كان من أعضاء نقابة المعذبين وإنه يبي يعيد المخلب لهم لأهله. بس الراهبة هذه ما تصدقه، وتقول له أصلا المخلب كان عبارة عن جوهرة مو كذا. وبالنسبة لقدرته على الإحياء والعلاج، هل تعتقد أنه رح يكون عندنا هذا الكم من الجرحى لو فعلا المخلب يداوي؟ وفعلا عندها وجهة نظر. اليوم التالي فيولا تقول إن في مشارك جديد بمنافسة رواية القصة. هذا الشخص هو جندي من الآسكيلز، لكنها رح تعيد صياغتها لهم ليفهمونها. تعيد صياغتها؟ ليش؟ لأن الآسكيلز يتكلمون بطريقة مؤدلجة، عبارة عن جمل ثابتة محددة ومنقحة عشان يكونون أسهل بالانصياع، شعارات سياسية ملقنة لهم من قبل السلطة، مثل بالضبط تأثير اللغة برواية جورج أورويل 1984 واللي تكلمت عنها بشكل مفصل سابقا، تلاقون الفيديو هنا. لكن هذه آخر سلسلة توقعت أشوف فيها حديث عن التحكم بالشعوب عن طريق اللغة، لكن يبدو أن جين وولف وضع كل الأفكار اللي يقدر يوضعها بمكان واحد دون ما ينهار هذا المكان تحت وزنها.
لقد أجرم بحق شعب آسكيا حتى اختزلوا ألا يتكلموا إلا بصوت سادتهم، غير أنهم صنعوا من ذلك الصوت لسانا جديدا. ولم يعترني أدنى شك بعد سماعي لذلك الآسكي أن بإمكانه عبر تلك الكلمات أن يعبر عن أي فكرة يشاء.
اليوم التالي فيولا تقول قصتها وهي القصة الأخيرة، لكن سيفيريان يأجل الحكم النهائي ليفكر باللي سمعه من جميع الأطراف. سيفيريان لاحقا يكتشف معبد لطائفة باليرينز ويلاقي فيه هيكل لهم، وهنا يقرر وأخيرا أن يعيد لهم المخلب.
لقد حملتك معي عبر جبال شائخة وعبر الأنهار والسيول، منحت ثكل الحياة في داخلي وأعدتها إلى دوركس، ورددت يونس إلى هذا العالم. يقينا لا أحمل في قلبي عتبا عليك، وإن كان فيك الكثير من العتب علي، غير أن هناك عتبا واحدا لن أستحقه. لن يقال يوما أنني لم أفعل كل ما بوسعي لأصلح ما أفسدته بيدي.
سيفيريان يضع المخلب تحت الهيكل مع شعور بالراحة غير مسبوق.
لقد انزاح عن كاهلي عبء الحياة والموت، والآن عدت مجرد رجل عادي من جديد، وتملكتني غبطة تكاد تذهب بعقلي.
قبل يطلع يصادف أحد راهبات الباليرينز مجددا واسمها مانيه، وتطلب منه طلب وهو الذهاب لبيت اسمه ذا لاست هاوس، البيت الأخير، وتحذير شخص يعيش هناك اسمه آش من اقتراب الحرب وإحضاره للمخيم. تعطيه خريطة وتقول له أنه لازم يتبع الطرق المحددة عليها بالضبط، وإلا حتى لو وصل ما راح يلاقي البيت. دقيقة، شلون؟ هو شيء غريب، لكن بالمرحلة هذه وإحنا بالكتاب الأخير صرنا نعرف أن ما في أي شيء هنا طبيعي. بعد رحلة دامت يومين بالضبط واللي لاحظ فيها سيفيريان اختفاء البيت من أعلى الجبل في حال سلك مسار مختلف، يوصل يفتح له الباب شخص على نور شمعة، واللي هو المعلم آش، ويقول له أنا آخر شخص هنا. قد يبدو لأول وهلة أن آش يقصد أن آخر شخص بالمنزل أو بالمنطقة اللي هو فيها، لكن بعدين نكتشف أنه يقصد أن آخر شخص على الأرض.
سطح الشمس باهت الآن، وسرعان ما سيصبح مضيئا بالحرارة، لكن الشمس نفسها ستنكمش مانحة طاقة أقل لعوالمها. وفي النهاية، إذا أتى شخص ووقف على الجليد فسوف يراها مجرد نجم ساطع، والجليد الذي يقف عليه لن يكون هذا الذي تراه، بل الغلاف الجوي لهذا العالم. وهكذا سيبقى الحال لزمن طويل، ربما حتى نهاية اليوم الكوني.
بيت المعلم آش يبدو أنه خارج الزمن، أو يشغل خط زمني مختلف امتلأت فيه الأرض بالثلج بسبب قرب الشمس من انطفائها النهائي، لأن اللي يشوفه سيفيريان من شباك المنزل هو بسيطة مغطاة بالبياض، ويقول له بما معناه أن البيت هذا تم وضعه هنا لمراقبة عواقب سيناريوهات مستقبلية مختلفة للأرض. سيفيريان يقول له عن الرجل الأخضر اللي قابله بالخيمة بالكتاب الثاني، كيف أنه يقول أنه جاء من مستقبل الشمس فيه ساطعة، فكيف أنت تقول أن مستقبلنا عبارة عن عصر جليدي؟ جواب المعلم آش هنا أشوف أنه يختصر كثير أشياء عن السلسلة هذه.
تظن أن الزمن خيط واحد، لكنه نسج متداخل، سجادة أطياف تمتد إلى الأبد في كل الاتجاهات. أنا أتبع خيطا نحو الماضي، أما أنت فتتبع لونا نحو المستقبل، ولا علم لي بأي لون سيكون. قد يهديك اللون الأبيض إلي، وقد يقودك الأخضر إلى رجلك الأخضر.
سيفيريان يقول له لازم تجي معاي للمخيم هربا من الحرب، برغم أن المعلم آش شرح له أن الحرب لا يمكن أنها توصله لأن بيته موجود بزمن مختلف. سيفيريان يجبره، ولما يطلعون من البيت يبدأ آش يختفي.
ل100 خطوة أخرى أو يزيد لم يكن المعلم آش قد تلاشى بالكامل. كنت أستشعر وجوده، بل وألمحه أحيانا يسير بجانبي متأخرا عني بنصف خطوة، طالما لم أحاول النظر إليه مباشرة.
يبدو أن بإخراج المعلم آش من بيته الموجود بخط زمني مختلف لخط سيفيريان الزمني اختفى سيفيريان يكمل طريقه للمخيم، لأن كمان جاء وقت الحكم بمسابقة القصص ويحدد مين رح يتزوج فويلة، لكن يصدم بأن المخيم مدمر تماما وما تعرف من بين المصابين إلا على فويلة، وتقول له أن الشباب اللي كانوا يتنافسون عليها كلهم ماتوا، وتطلب منه تخليد القصص هذه بأنه يرويها للغير. وفعلا سيفيريان حطها بسيرته الذاتية اللي كلنا قاعدين نقرأها الآن، واللي هي كتاب الشمس الجديدة.
وكثيرا ما يتبين لي أن من بين كل الطيبات في هذا العالم لا يملك البشر أن ينسبوا لأنفسهم سوى أمرين اثنين: الحكاية والموسيقى. أما ما عدا ذلك من رحمة وجمال ونوم وماء عذب وطعام ساخن ما هي إلا صنيع الخالق وحده.
سيفيريان يكمل رحلة الانضمام لجيش الأوتارك بحربه على الآسكينز بعد تحقيق هدفه الأول، واللي هو إعادة المخلب لنقابة الباليرينز، وفعلا شيء يقود لآخر، وسيفيريان يلاقي نفسه وسط معركة ضارية لين يصاب برجله إصابة بالغة، وهنا يتم إنقاذه، بس من قبل مين؟
ربما كانت لمسته التي أخبرتني من يكون الكائن الذي قابلته بالبيت الأزرق المغطى بالثلوج، ولاحقا في تلك الغرفة المنظورة ببراعة والتي تظاهرت بأنها لوحة معلقة في ممر البيت المطلق. إنه الأوتارك.
الأوتارك موجود داخل المعركة بنفسه، وهو سيفيريان تذكروا بعض من عدة مقابلات سابقة، واحدة منهم اللي صارت بالبيت المطلق مع جاسوس فودلس اللي كان يبدو، والحين تأكدنا، أن الأوتارك. وبحديث طويل بينهم نكتشف أن الأوتارك يشغل عدة مناصب أقل بنفس الوقت، ويبدو أن السبب للاطلاع على أكبر حيز ممكن من الدولة. سيفيريان يسأله لو الحين رح يعدمه بعد ما عرف سره. الأوتارك يقول لا، ببالي خطة ثانية لك، ويبدأون رحلتهم على مركبة طائرة عائدين للبيت المطلق للهاوس أبسولوت. هل خطة حربا قبل هذه؟ سيفيريان يسأله.
لقد خضت 1000 روح. أنت لا تتعدى كونك نفسا واحدة أو اثنتين بالعد المألوف للبشر، فكم تراني أكون في ظنك؟
دقيقة، الأوتارك قال لسيفيريان أنت عبارة عن شخصين، يقصد هو ثكلة اللي بداخله. كم تعتقد عدد الأشخاص اللي هم أنا؟ بعدين نكتشف أن الأوتارك هو كل الأوتاركس اللي قبل، وجزء أساسي من تعيين أي أوتارك هو امتلاك ذكريات من سبقوه. ونكتشف هالشيء تحديدا لما يطلب من سيفيريان أنه يشرب مسحوق معلق برقبته شبيه بسائل الألزبو ويلتهم دماغه. وجاء هذا الطلب بعد إسقاط مركبتهم وهم عائدين للبيت المطلق وإصابة الأوتارك بجروح بليغة.
لقد أخبرني أن قدري في خلافته، ولكن إلى متى يستمر هذا العرش؟ ورغم غرابة التفكير في هذا وأنا أسير، وأنا رجل أثخنته الجراح وبلغ من الضعف مبلغه لدرجة تجعل ساعة راحة على هذا العشب الخشن تبدو وكأنها الجنة، إلا أن شهوة السلطان والطموح كانت تجرفني كليا.
قبل سيفيريان يستجيب لطلب الأوتارك يتم إنقاذه من براثن الآسكينز، لكن هالمرة من ألد أعدائه.
ومن فوقي أيضا سمعت صوت امرأة يصيح: الآن لقد كافأتك على المنجم، ما زلت على قيد الحياة.
كلنا عارفين لما قرأنا هالجملة إن اللي يتكلم هي آجية. آجية قررت ترد للإبقاء على حياتها عند المنجم، لكنها ومعها هيثور ودوا لفودلس، وبمحادثة مثيرة للاهتمام بينهم فودلس يقول له:
أتدري، رغم أن الأمر يبدو مثيرا للضحك، إلا أنني خفت أن تكون أنت هو الأوتارك الحاكم المطلق. فالمرء لا يسعه التنبؤ بأي شيء، يرحل حاكم ليحل محله آخر، وقد يمتد عهد الحاكم الجديد لزمن يناهز نصف قرن أو مجرد أسبوعين خاطفين.
يقول لك أنت محسبك أنك صرت الأوتارك، وأشوف أنك تغيرت من آخر مرة تقابلنا.
وأنت نفسك من منحني عقار الألزبو ووهبني حياة السيدة الثكلى، وأنا أحببتها. أفظننت أن اندماج جوهرها في أعماقي لن يترك في أثرا؟ إنها تعيش معي لدرجة أنني صرت كيانين في هذا الجسد الواحد، ومع ذلك لست أنا الحاكم الذي يجمع في جسد واحد 1000 روح.
سيفيريان ينكر ويقول له أكيد تغيرت لأن بسببك الحين ثكلة صارت بدماغي. قال له طيب وصف لي شكل الأوتارك.
كيف كان مظهر الأوتارك؟ أنبئني بكل تفاصيله. ففعلت ما طلب، ورسمت له ملامح الدكتور تالوس كما تجلى في دوره المسرحي.
سيفيريان وصف له شكل دكتور تالوس بالمسرحية. هالشيء أضحكني جدا، مدري ليه، يمكن لأني ما توقعت بمشهد جدي مثل هذا. لاحقا يسجن سيفيريان مع الأوتارك ويرجع يطلب منه أداء نفس الطقس السابق.
حين تفعل ما أمرتك به ستستمر حياتي وحياة كل أولئك الذين يحيون في داخلي، ممتدة في روحك. ستتسلل الخلايا إلى جهازك العصبي وتتكاثر هناك. العقار في القارورة المعلقة على صدري، وذلك النصل سيفلق عظام جمجمتي كما يفلق حطب الصنوبر.
تذكرون لما تغير منظورنا للسلسلة بعد ما سيفيريان صار واحد مع ثكلا؟ وبالتالي ذاكرة وتجارب مشتركة، وبالتالي قصته اللي قاعد يقولها وهو يفتخر بذاكرته الحديدية شيء لا يمكن الثقة فيه. طيب ما بالك باللي رح يصير بعد التهام دماغ الأوتارك اللي يملك ذاكرة كل الأوتاركس اللي قبله؟ بالضبط، سيفيريان هو حرفيا مجموعة إنسان، والكلمات اللي كتبها هذا الإنسان لا يمكن الوثوق فيها.
إن الحاكم الميت الذي رأيت وجهه قبل لحظات خرابا مدرجا بالدماء قد بعث حيا من جديد. أضحت عيناي عينيه ويداي يديه، وصرت أعرف سر خلايا النحل في البيت المطلق وقدسيتها، وهي التي تهتدي بالشمس وتجني ذهب الأرض. أدركت مساره نحو عرش العنقاء وإلى النجوم وعودته منها. أضحى عقله عقلي وغمر ذهني بمعارف لم يخطر ببالي يوما وجودها، وبحكمة حملتها إليه أدمغة السالفين.
كل ذكريات الأوتارك ومن سبقه، كل معرفتهم وتجاربهم صارت بمكان ما بدماغ سيفيريان. سيفيريان وثكلا صاروا عدد كبير من الأوتاركس. لاحقا يزورا، وكالعادة بهذه السلسلة شخص من زمان ما سمعنا عنه، واللي هو الرجل الأخضر اللي جاء من مستقبل مختلف وأنقذ سيفيريان من سجنه داخل الخيمة ومع آجية. الرجل الأخضر يقول لسيفيريان: جيت أرد لك المعروف مثل ما وعدتك.
لقد أمضيت دهري أرقد صاعدا وهابطا في دهاليز الزمن، أبحث عن لحظة تكون فيها أنت أيضا مأسورا لعلي أفلح في تحريرك.
آجية تقول له أن ودي أقتلك أو أنك تتعذب تحت يد فودلس، لكن الرجل الأخضر رفض. رح يجي اليوم رح تلاقيني فيه فوق راسك. سيفيريان يرجع للبيت المطلق ورسميا يصبح الأوتارك، والشيء اللي قاله ببداية الكتاب الأول بأنه رح يقول لنا كيف صار على العرش تحقق، بس لازم الحين يمر بالاختبار اللي مر فيه كل الأوتاركس لإحضار الشمس الجديدة.
أنت تعرف أهوار الفضاء السحيق من أغواره، الذي يدعوها البعض الحفر السوداء أو الثقوب السوداء، حيث لا تعود منها ذرة مادة ولا قبس ضوء أبدا. لكن ما لم تكن تعرفه حتى اللحظة هو أن لتلك الأهوار نظائر تدعى الينابيع البيضاء، ينهمر منها الضوء المقذوف من كون أعلى ليصب في عالمنا هنا كشلال لا ينتهي. وأن كتب لك النجاح، وإن رؤي أن جنسنا أضحى جديرا بالعودة إلى أبحر الفضاء الفسيحة، فسوف ينبت مثل هذا الينبوع الأبيض في قلب شمسنا.
نقدر نستنتج أن الكلام هنا عن الثقوب السوداء والبيضاء. الثقب الأسود معروف أنه هو الثقب اللي حتى النور ما ينجو من جاذبيته. الثقوب البيضاء نظرياً هي نقيض السوداء، وهي تخرج وتولد المادة بدل ابتلاعها. لو نجح بالمحاكمة فثقب أبيض رح يولد للأرض شمس جديدة. لاحقاً سيفيريان يروح الشاطئ، هو يتأمل الغروب في شيء يوخزه، يلاحظ أن شوكة وردة، وهي بالضبط الشيء الذي تبقى من المخلب بعد تحطم الجوهرة اللي حوله. المخلب والقوال اللي كان يستعملها سيفيريان عبارة عن هذا الشيء العادي، وهنا سيفيريان وإحنا معاه نتأكد أن قوة المخلب كانت من البداية قوته هو، لأن هو الشمس الجديدة. لكن الشمس الجديدة عبارة عن لقب، عشان فعلا يداوي الشمس من قرب انطفائها لازم يمثل البشرية بمحاكمة كونية مثل ما قلنا سابقا، محاكمة النجاح فيها رح تعيد للبشرية مكانتهم بين النجوم.
كان المخلب كاملا بسواد صقيل باهر، تماما كما وضعته تحت حجر مذبح البلرينز. وكانت تلك الشجيرة وسائر الشجيرات النامية معها مكسوة بأزهار بيضاء ناصعة، وتتجلى فيها هذه المخالب الكاملة. وحين حدقت في ذلك الذي بين كفي انفجر يشتعل بنور ساطع.
أكيد رحلة سيفيريان القادمة هي نقابة المعذبين للمعلم بلايمن اللي أعطاه ترمينس إست.
إن العودة إلى سجن النقابة يعني العودة إلى شيء ظننته منذ غادرت إلى ثراكس قد تلاشى إلى الأبد، إلا أن الممرات المعدنية بصفوف أبوابها الطويلة لم تتبدل. وحين استرقت النظر عبر النوافذ الضيقة التي تثقب تلك الأبواب أبصرت وجوها أليفة، وجوه رجال ونساء كلفت بإطعامهم وحراستهم عندما كنت صانعا مبتدئا. قلت له: أنت تعلم أن ذكرياتنا لا تبلى أبدا، فبالنسبة لنا لا تزال السيدة ثكلا قابعة في إحدى هذه الزنازن، والتلميذ سيفيريان مقيم في زنزانة أخرى.
وسيفيريان يقابل أصحاب القدماء روش، دروت وإيتا، ويرجع يبحث عن فاليريا اللي قابلها وهو يبحث عن ترايسيكل بالكتاب الأول، وفاليريا تصير زوجته. وبس ينتهي الكتاب الرابع وسيفيريان يحضر لرحلته بين النجوم لإحضار الشمس الجديدة.
هنا يقف قلمي أيها القارئ، وإن كنت أنا لن أقف، لقد حملتك معي من بوابة إلى بوابة، من تلك البوابة المغلقة المكسوة بالضباب في مقبرة نسس إلى هذه البوابة الملبدة بالغيوم التي نسميها السماء، البوابة التي ستفضي بي كما أرجو إلى ما وراء النجوم القريبة. يقف قلمي، أما أنا فماض في طريقي. أيها القارئ، لن تسير معي بعد اليوم، فقد حان الوقت ليعود كل منا إلى حياته. وها أنا ذا سيفيريان الأعرج، الحاكم المطلق، أضع خط يدي على هذا السجل في عام سيعرف بأنه العام الأخير للشمس القديمة.
ومع النهاية هذه تنتهي سلسلة كتاب الشمس الجديدة، لكن بعد 10 سنوات جين وولف يكتب كتاب خامس Earth of the New Sun، يتكلم عن رحلة سيفيريان الأخيرة. هذه هو عبارة عن كودا، والكودا هي الخاتمة، وهي إضافة تجيب على الأسئلة المهمة عادة بسلسلة ما. أنا كأنس أشوف أن الأربع كتب الأساسية كافية بالرغم ما فيها من ألغاز، بل أشوف أن الألغاز هذه هي اللي خلت لها طعم. وبكذا أكون خلصت أكبر مشروع سويته من بدأت محتواي. الشراكة هذه مع دار شفق والأستاذة نورة العنزي وبودكاست ريدينج جين وولف كانت شيء مثمر جدا بالرغم من جهد الكتابة والتصوير والمونتاج. لا تنسوني من دعمكم باللايكات والمشاركة عشان أحس أن هذا التعب في منه طائل. بس لا تروحون لسه، لأن راح أخليكم مثل ما تعودنا بهالسلسلة مع محادثة بين غريغ وجيمس. لكن قبل أنهي ودي أقول شيء أخير. لو حبيتوا المحادثات هذه اللي على شكل بودكاست ومهتمين تشوفونها أكثر، علموني بالتعليقات، ممكن أسويها بعد كل فيديو أسويه، أو حتى أسوي بودكاست خاص فيني منفصل. اكتبوا لي كمان عن إيش ودكم أتكلم مستقبلا. وإلى اللقاء في عالم جديد من عوالم الخيال العلمي.
So we start the citadel of the autarch with that feeling that there's a war in the background. There's a big war happening, and gradually we start to understand that it is a war between the Askian army and the autarch's army. So what is happening here? What is this big war in the background? And it's a war on what?
Well, it's a war with the Askians to the north, who are named because many people in the Commonwealth assume they live on the equator, whereas in truth their country is on the equator and then also well to the north, which since obviously this is in South America, then it's all the way Central America and probably the entire continent of North America.
Is it confirmed, the location?
Well, it is. We know it's in the southern hemisphere, and I think there's enough signs to know that we're talking about the area around Argentina.
Yeah. Okay. And now to one of the greatest mysteries, at least to me, and I've been waiting for this moment, and I will be hearing your point of view and Mr. Craig's point of view. It's about that dead soldier that Siverian meets immediately after the beginning of the fourth book, almost immediately. He found a dead soldier, and then for some reason he decided, I want to revive him. And there's a letter, and he reads the letter, and then he succeeds in reviving him. And then out of nothing, Siverian starts to tell us that he's seeing Jonas in him. So what is happening here? Where did Jonas came from?
Okay, Craig, you want to? I know. I feel like I know exactly what's going on now.
Well, there are a couple things. So it's unclear at first when this happens whether or not Siverian is right. First of all, that or whether he's seeing something or not. But basically, he sees this soldier and starts to believe that the soldier is actually his friend Jonas come back somehow. Not the Miles, the name of the soldier, doesn't look exactly like Jonas, but Siverian starts to notice some things about him that are very much like Jonas, and really, to me at least, oddly, convinces himself almost immediately that this is Jonas, and even goes so far as to try and convince the soldier in some times that, he knows him already kind of thing. But Siverian's got a kind of explanation for this, that when Jonas left through the mirrors before, he did some kind of, hyperdimensional, maybe spiritual, I don't know, but kind of traveling, and that this is the way that he's now come back from that kind of travel. That whenever Siverian, if it was the claw that actually brought the soldier back, he thinks that somehow Jonas's soul got mixed into it. Now, there are tons of theories out there about kind of what's going on, and lots of different versions of the explanation. Everything from saying that if Jonas himself originally was actually a combination of a sort of android or robot and a human, then maybe Miles is just the human part of Jonas, who might be fixed or whole again. Other people think it might be that Miles is, like a reincarnation of some sort like that. But that Siverian leaves it a little vague as to actually how that works. He mentions a couple possibilities, but I don't think it's ever explicitly clear whether or not Siverian's right, and if he's exactly right, or which version of he right about. Because then we'd get into all kinds of like, well, how do identities and souls or whatever move from person to person? And Jonas is a weird case anyway, since he's already a robot and a human who are already mixed up just a little bit. So that's kind of the general outline of what happens, and of a number of the different ways that people have looked at it. So does that sound fair, at least for the overview, James?
Yeah.
So
I want to just mention one last thing, Mr. James first. Is that and I would appreciate it if you emphasize on that point also, or if you mention it in your point.
Yeah.
Siverian, he's so insistent that this is Jonas. It's not even it's like he's not even here. The way he's talking with him, like he's talking to him as Jonas. Like, Jonas, I know you are listening. I don't blame you. The man was dead and you are still alive. I understand. But Jonas, Yolenta is gone. I watch her die, etc. So what is happening here?
In my opinion, what is happening is that one of the things about Jonas is that he has human eyes. That's something that Siverian points out explicitly. And Siverian, I think, is looking at Miles, and because Siverian has a perfect memory, he can recognize that these eyes are the same as Jonas's. And so consequently, I used to think, well, that, okay, Miles is going to be, is Jonas's biological parts, fine. And so that means that Miles is going to somehow end up, in the distant past and get squished by a rocket ship when Robo Jonas arrives. And so therefore, right now he must be, maybe Jonas has entered the mirrors, and he has circumfused to, as Odillo has said, to the borders of Bria. And so Siverian assumes that Jonas is nearby listening. I don't think that that's what's happening. I think what happened is that Siverian has recognized that, okay, this is the Jonas's biological parts. And so he speaks to him and gives him information that's only going to make sense to him when the claw resurrects Miles's biological parts and he steps into the mirror. Then he knows, okay, then all of this information is going to be useful to him at that point. You know what I'm saying? He's speaking to him now. Sometime in Siverian knows a bunch of things are going to happen. He's going to become patchwork for a robot, and then he's going to be resurrected, and then all of this information that he's told him, he will remember.
Okay, but how Siverian knows that at some point he will be resurrected and these parts will be part of Jonas?
Because he knows, well, because since Miles is not a robot right now, Siverian has deduced that he's going to end up in the past.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the weird thing where Siverian is kind of like, oh, well, if this is Siverian's logic. And Severin does this all the time, where he's like, okay, well, I see the human part of Jonas here. Well, if this is the human part of Jonas, then obviously he must somehow get into the past so that Jonas can crash on him and, fuse with him in some way like that. So it's weird Severin logic where he's like, you're going to time travel at some point. Obviously, you must, because that's how this happens. That's where it gets weird. Now, Severin does make sort of lots of weird suppositions like that all the time. So it could well be that is what he's thinking, honestly. But it is, this is one of those passages that I think has tempted and created a whole bunch of different theories, because it seems so promising in terms of like ways that you could make this actually tie together in different sort of explanations. But at the same time, I don't know that there's any 100% definitive sort of clue as to whether Miles really is Jonas, or if he is, what that actually means, or how it happened, or something like that. That I think, to me at least, Wolf has left it really vague. And if there is a solution to it, it's going to be, a very subtle solution, a lot like James was talking about. Like if it is about the eyes, then that could well be it. But it's a difficult part for me. The sort of interesting bigger issue though is that it is one of the few times where Wolf gets into something like the idea of a soul kind of moving around from body to body in New Sun. That happens a whole lot more in Long and Short Sun. But it's not something that he's really talked about, even with Thekla. Like, he doesn't necessarily talk about her soul or anything like that now being part of him. But the way that Miles must somehow take on Jonas's identity, it is the closest thing to a sort of idea that, a soul must have, gone from one person into this other, now into this body, which is not exactly the way that he's talked about identities sort of existing before. Like so far in the book, identities are really kind of tied to physical stuff in some ways, because he gets Thekla because he eats some of her, and they talk about how the tiniest bit of someone will have, will have sort of the macrocosm within it. But this is a different sense of, sort of how identity works, or how a soul works, or something like that. And it's interesting too, because like I said, it is something that he does much, much more in Long and Short Sun. But it's more unique in New Sun for this.
Interesting. We can also always say that Severin was alone, feeling lonely. And after what happened to him, and he misses Jonas. And this is the thing where there is multiple interpretations of anything that is happening in these books, But this is the most underwhelming one. Like, he's just lonely.
No, you're right. But it's also the one that actually probably fits most directly with what Wolf actually narrates, because Miles never really does anything fantastical. He never really acknowledges anything about Severin. Like, he kind of humors him a little bit, but there's never any sort of confirmation of anything that Severin believes about him. And so, yeah, you're right. If you just look at sort of the facts of the novel, by Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is, Severin was feeling lonely and he missed his friend. and this is
also, we can add to that he is already feeling feverish, right? Because when he reached the ballerines' camp, they immediately tell, we need to treat you because you have a fever. So maybe that, and we know that fever might cause hallucinations and weird visions and feelings. So they walk a little bit together. Severin starts to talk to him about everything until, as I said, they reach the ballerines' camp. I have a question here. Are the ballerines treating both sides of the war?
They seem to be, just because they do have an Ashian prisoner of war, but I don't know. Everyone else in the camp is from the Commonwealth. So I don't know, unless I'm wrong, James, I don't really remember any strong indication that the Pellerines were definitely trying to, heal both sides. I mean, it could be just that they would have, except that they're just on this side of the war front, and so they're going to help them. I mean, I don't really know, but they do have one prisoner of war there.
Well, given their alliance to the Claw and the Conciliator, the Askians are certainly a rival force or a hostile force. It wouldn't seem likely that they could wander around in Askian territory unmolested. But they're not an official group. They're not agents of the government. They are a charitable organization, and so if a Askian has fallen into their lazaret, they will care for him.
So, and there Siverian meets Fiola, and Fiola is looking for, or there is multiple gentlemen who are competing to marry her. So she says, okay,
she set up a contest. Whoever's going to tell the best story, that's who I'm going to marry.
Yeah, and then and she said, I will be participating in that.
Yeah, that's right.
And if I won, I will marry nobody.
Yeah.
So, okay. And also one of the Askian soldiers, he will be entering this contest. Mm-hmm. Also, what is interesting, this is where I found out, for me at least, that the Askians have a certain way of talking that is close to 1984.
That's right.
The novel by George Orwell. Yeah. One question here. Are the Askians manipulated by Abaya and Erebus and the giants under the sea?
Abaya, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it's whether or not they're... I don't think... at least to me, I've never gotten the sense that they're sort of directly mind-controlled by a monster or something like that. They are absolutely manipulated by them. And the way that Wolf kind of sets it up is that the Askian society is, you mentioned 1984. Yeah, it is thoroughly propagandized. I mean, it is just completely and totally shot through with sort of total mind control and total conformity. And what it really is a sort of logical, absurdist extreme of really almost like, I don't know. I mean, there's a certain kind of communism that they push for, but it's where everybody has to be absolutely identical. Everything has to be completely and totally approved by the society, literally down to the actual words that you're allowed to say and how you're allowed to say them. And so it's a world, it's a civilization without any individuality at all. In fact, the Ashian's name, so far as he has a name, is loyal to the group of 17, which is kind of like saying loyal to the government. Like that's his name, and it just describes him and all the things that they say. Like literally, it's one of the coolest things there. But literally, all of the things that they actually say are approved phrases from a book. And I think the book that they talk about is supposed to sort of be a version of Mao's Little Red Book. Whether or not it literally is or isn't, I'm not sure, but it's definitely similar to that. But everything that they say is sort of like an analogy or a phrase that is some kind of propaganda, that it's some kind of like ways to say approved things.
It's the approved book of sayings, and you can only speak the approved book of sayings. Yeah. And they have consequently produced a kind of language from that.
And this is one of the threads, so many threads in this book where it's not explored enough, but it has its own world and its own structure and its own background. Like you can imagine what is happening here. It's close to the rats thing in the library. It's only mentioned once, and there's a whole thing that behind the scenes that you will never hear about. And
Yeah.
this is one of those things where it's an idea and it is there. Now you can imagine what is happening behind the scenes. We're not going to tell you anything more. So
Yeah, and we assume that. I mean, it's inviting to think of something as a very strong agricultural culture. I mean, certainly from Loyal to the Group of 17's story, he presents us something like that. But on the other hand, the autarch, in speaking to Seiferian, says that the sun was struck in order to pause progress. However, he says if you want progress, the Aeschines have it, which suggests that they are more advanced technologically than the Commonwealth that we see.
Later on, he finds a temple for the ballerines, and he said, "Okay, I've been looking for this to return the claw. Finally, this is my chance." But before that, he has a conversation with one of the ballerines, and he told her about everything that has happened to him and how he is resurrecting the dead. And she said very interesting thing. She said, "Oh, it's nothing. Do you think that if we have this ability, we will have all of these sick people and injured people?" So she dismisses all of what he said, but nonetheless, he returns the claw. And
well, she won't take it. She says, this is first place. This isn't what the claw. This isn't the claw. I know what the claw looks like. It's a gem. It's a rock.
Yeah, because this is after it's broken now, right? After the battle with Voldanders. Yeah.
Well, now it's just but it was broken, so now it's just a thorn.
That he will understand this whole idea of it being a thorn at the end of this book, and we will get to that.
That's right.
So at that moment, one of the most interesting things, at least to me, happened in this series. She asked him to go to fetch Master Ash.
Yeah.
And she gave him a map, and she said, "Okay, you go there. You need to follow it specifically, otherwise you will not find the house," which is okay. So I will go to you first, Mr. Craig. Who is Master Ash, and why his house it seems out of time? And at one instant, Seiferian saw from that window a world that is full of ice, let's say a dead world. So what is happening here?
So the way that Master Ash describes it, he's sent from essentially the future to come back and study the past and to study different possibilities of the past. And so Master Ash in some ways is kind of like a confirmation that we live in that the books are a sort of time travel world where people can literally time travel. But apparently it's not just random, because there's also something like a kind of multiverse going on where there are different time streams that you can go down. And so where it's like, if he talks about how there's my future and there's your future, and I know what my future is going to be because I've already lived it, but you don't know quite what your future is going to be yet. But what Master Ash is, he describes himself as some kind of person sent to come back and study or monitor basically different timelines, and to watch and see what's going on there. And when Seiferian looks out the one window, he sees a world that is completely frozen, which would basically be like a world where the sun was not regenerated and the earth completely froze finally. And Master Ash kind of points out, he's like, that's one possible future for you, but it's the one that I know will eventually come for me, but I don't know if it's the one that will eventually come for you or not. And so how Seiferian has gotten to this guy's house, it's just, apparently this is just, the one spot and the one way where our world intersects with Master Ash's house. But Seiferian feels like, he's told the Pellerine he's going to get this old guy out of here. And so he says, I'll bring you, I've got to take you out because I promised the Pellerines that I would get you safe away from the war, or from the war front. And so he forces him to leave the house. And what happens is Master Ash just straight up tells him, he's like, look, if you pull me away from my house, I'm going to be taken further and further away from my timeline. And I don't quite know what'll happen. I may just disappear. I might just stop existing. I don't know. But I can't exist only in your timeline because it's not my timeline.
Yeah, he says,
sure enough,
I've often wondered what would happen. I can only be here if in all probability I will be. It's a probability issue. If there's some probability that I will exist, then I can continue here. But what happens is, at first he's walking beside him, and then next thing he realizes that he still can hear him talking, but he can't see him, and then he kind of fades out farther and farther away, suggesting I guess that Master Ash has a chance. His world of a frozen Earth has a chance of existing, but as they walk away from Master Ash's house, that chance becomes less and less likely. That's one interpretation of what's happening. He basically, on every floor of his house is a different timeline, and giving Seiferian a chance to see what the other option is.
One of the things that he told Seiferian later on, or during this journey, I think it explains a lot of the timelines in these series, and it explains also a lot of events. He said, you think that time is a single thread. It is weaving a tapestry that extends forever in all directions. So he even mentioned the Green Man, because Seiferian was telling him about him. You will trace a color forward. That color I cannot know. White may lead you to me. Green might lead to your Green Man. So yeah, it's very interesting. Also, this is one of the funny instances where Seiferian, like, I don't get his he forced him to go with him, right? I think he wrapped him with something and carried him. You are coming with me. Even though he's explaining to him, the war can't affect me because I am outside this time, outside this area. No, you are coming with me.
He's got his orders, right?
Yeah. And this is also tells us a lot about Seiferian's personality, because he was raised in the Mattischen Tower. He was raised in the guild. When you give me an order, I have to complete. And maybe this is why. Maybe this is his motivation in this case.
Right. Yeah, that sounds entirely possible.
Okay. So this is one of the following is one of the sad things in the series. Seiferian gets back to the camp, and he finds out that it was been attacked, and almost everybody is dead, and only Fiola is alive. And she told him, please keep these stories alive by telling them to people, which Seiferian did, because we are reading these stories in the book of the New Sun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, and we didn't know who she was going to marry. So,
well, the one thing that we know about the storytelling contest is that Wolf had originally planned for the Book of the New Sun to be a trilogy. And then he got to the last book, and he discovered, it's about, it's about half again, 50% too long. So he says, so he asked his agent, should I split it? And she said, well, yeah, sure, you should split it. So and all this happened before the first volume went to the printer. And so he did split it, and he found a convenient place for the division to be. But then the Citadel of the Autarch was about 40% too short. So, or maybe a quarter too short. I'm not really sure. But in order to fatten it up, he wrote the storytelling contest. And so consequently, you see that he's basically hermetically sealed off the storytelling contest from the rest of the book, because all of the participants in the storytelling contest do not go forward. He doesn't have to worry that somehow he's messed up the Citadel of the Autarch. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So later on, he gets what he wants. He joined the army and he becomes part of the war. And he gets injured. And this is where he becomes Siverian the Lame, or this is different?
He becomes Siverian the Lame when they crash. Yeah,
okay.
In the Autark ship.
Okay, so this is what we are going to get to now. Somebody rescues him, and then we find out that this is the Autark. And when he starts to remember that this is the one that he met in the beginning in the house Asher, right?
Right.
And then later
he had already
on
recognized
in the house
that he was
Absolute.
right. He had already recognized that time that he was the Autark with Thekla's memory. But so now he's meeting him again as the Autark. He didn't and the Autark expected to find him here. He told him in House Absolute, okay, you must go to your job. Telling everyone that you plan to go to Thrax and for this is to be your job. Telling even yourself that this is the truth, which is kind of a weird thing to tell him. And then he says, but then the Pelorines are in the north, so you need to return that claw at your first opportunity. And so when he flees Thrax, that's what he's doing. He's moving steadily north in order to find the Pelorines and return the claw. And now he says, now when you go, and the Autark has told him at House Absolute, when you meet the Autark, you are to kill him. And
okay, because he want to be killed, and then his memories inherited.
That's right.
Because Siverian essentially will be the new Autark. So
That's
everything
right.
is planned. Or let's say he's trying to keep things according to the plan. He doesn't want to mess things up.
That's what happened before. He doesn't want anything to split off. He's rather concerned, apparently, because the claw was not part of that timeline plan. He's kind of worried about it, that he's not sure what to do about it. Should he take it away from him? Should he let him keep it? So he asks Siverian, what do you want to do? And so based on that, he just kind of merges the claw without taking it from him. He merges the claw into Siverian's plan. Go north, where you're going to find the Pelorines, which is where the war is, and he knows that they'll meet.
Okay, but you said something very important. You said, because this is what happened before, when we talked about messing up the plan. When did the plan messed up before?
Okay, it's something very contentious here. You're at the very end of this novel, at the end of the chapter, Siverian sits down, he says, I am not the first Siverian. Now, what people believe about what Siverian is saying here in the final chapter of the novel. Some will say, well, Siverian is just confused. Siverian is just guessing. What I see in this, in what Siverian says, he says, look, I'm not the first Siverian. The first Siverian grew up in the tower. He was exiled for some reason. And then he went to Thrax, and he fled, and the only difference is he did not carry the claw. Though he did not carry the claw, he still fled to the north, probably to hide among the armies in the military. And there he met the Autark, and as he says, and so my own story began. So he. All this information to me appears to come from the Autark's memory. The Autark knows all of these things, and either the Autark has been told or has deduced that in the previous instance he did not carry the claw, and so which is why he's so concerned about the claw.
Also, because all the Autarks are inside this Autark. So
that's right.
The memories are inherited, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, but not only that, but he's in his interview in 1983, shortly after the publication of Citadel of the Autark, the interviewer asked him, the Siverian seems to have a lot of control over the great powers in his world. And Wolf said, well, not himself, really. It's because of his actions in a previous iteration that they are all reacting to. So that is the about the most clear thing he's told us about the Seiferian iteration and the powers and why and their motivations. He gets kind of tight-lipped after that.
Mr. Greg, anything you want to add to this?
It's not this one in particular, but we're gonna come back a lot to this idea. But yeah.
Okay, so the author explicitly tells him there is something around my neck. This is before their flyer fell. Mm-hmm. He explains to him, you are going to be the autarch, and you're gonna drink this the thing that is in my neck, which is, of course, it's some illustration of the Alzobo soup, I think. But then their flyer fell, right? And Seiferian and Seiferian becomes a prisoner of war. We meet our old friends Agia and Heather, okay, with the Green Man, right? Mm-hmm. And the Green Man, because the Green Man told him before, I will be returning the favor. And
right.
He was searching in the corridors of time to find a moment where he can rescue Seiferian. But my question is here, how it appears that he convinced Agia to not kill him, right?
Right.
What is the connection between the Green Man and Agia? Do we know anything about that?
Yeah, Agia is upset at the at Vodalus because she feels like she's been cheated. He was supposed to hand Seiferian over to her so that she could kill him, and he wouldn't do that. So she already has somewhat of a beef with the autarch. Also, the Green Man has obviously promised her the opportunity to become the leader of the Vodalari. All she has to do is kill Vodalus. What's going on in Vodalus's organization that they're not all that sad to see him go and glad to get a new leader is not really all that clear. But, Agia has been pretty canny up until now. She's a pretty good survivor, and she's pretty good at bringing people into her allegiance. So I'm not sure where I was going with that. Oh, what's the connection? Well, the Green Man has promised that he's going to find an opportunity to save Seiferian when he would not save himself. I think we see him in the antechamber when the young exaltants show up and they whip all of the guests. There's a green face that Seiferian sees at that moment. So clearly, to me, it looks like the Green Man is going through Seiferian's timeline looking for an opportunity to save him. But he can see that Seiferian is going to escape without his help. By the same token, the Green Man does not consider this deal paid because he says, well, no, actually, if I had not intervened here, you would still have escaped. So the deal it still goes on. And Agia has also made a promise. She also tells Seiferian, we're not over yet. I'm still going to kill you.
I will pay you a visit. Yeah.
Right. But as part of this deal she's made with the Green Man, she's not going to do it right now.
Mr. Greg, anything to add?
Just that something James and I were talking about a while back, but I love the Green Man's description of how he's searched for ways that he searched the corridors of time for places or times when he could actually be of use and save Seiferian. But just how interesting it is to me that it's kind of the sense that he's been wandering around at different points of Seiferian's life. Not necessarily in a linear way, but just kind of, I don't know, wandering in a maze of Seiferian's life, looking for ways
and
to
maybe different Seiferians to get back to Mr. James's point.
Could well be, yeah. Yep.
One thing led to another, and then Seiferian actually does this ritual, and he becomes the autarch. This is where it becomes a little bit weird to me, because he meets Malrubius and Triskele, I always call him Tricycle, I don't know. So
Yeah.
There's
So-
no agreement about how to pronounce it. So
yeah, but Malrubius and the dog, let's say,
Triscali,
they are they are part of his imagination here, or what is happening, because they are stating facts.
What they say is that there is a machine that is making them real, drawing them from Severion's memories. So he has memories and of these beings, and they're perfect memories. So I guess it works pretty well for Siverian. And but he also knows a lot of other things, presumably that the Cacogens, the Hierodules have told him.
This is there is a very interesting conversation here from Malrubius, where he starts explaining the White Mountain and the Black Mountain, and he's here talking about. And I need you gentlemen to explain this more to me, and to the listeners. But they are talking here about the black holes and theoretically the white holes.
That's right.
But what has the black holes and the white holes to do with the new sun and this whole Siverian thing and this whole humanity endeavor and the dying sun?
No, take it, Craig.
What Malrubius kind of says is that what's happened is that the sun isn't dying just because it's old, that the sun is dying because it has a black hole at its heart. And he doesn't specifically say how it got there or what forces put it there, but there's some sense that the sun has something at its heart that's eating it away. And that what it needs is a white hole, which is like if a black hole is where all the energy goes and can't escape, a white hole is sort of like a constantly producing light and energy and matter producing thing that is going to be needs to get put into the sun, and that's what's going to be the rebirth of the sun, to bring it back. And this is where Kim Stanley Robinson is another writer who talks about how Wolfe will often do slingshot endings, is what he calls them. And what he means by that is that Wolfe will often tell stories that sort of go along at a pretty regular pace, and you're following one person, and then in the last fifth or sixth of the book, all of a sudden the scope just changes wildly, and you find out that you're actually caught up in all kinds of other things going on. It leads to lots of confusion, and it leads to lots of people arguing about what it actually means. So, but Malrubius's explanation here is taken by a lot of people to mean that this is part of the test that humanity is going through, and which is how the book ends, where Siverian says, I'm going to have to leave, I'm going to have to go on a spaceship and go somewhere and be tested to see whether or not the sun can be brought back or not. And so by that logic, I guess what would happen is whoever it is that's testing Siverian would also have sort of caused the sun to start to die out, so that you had to sort of force this test on people. But it's basically saying, you Siverian are caught up in this sort of cosmic story that's going to decide whether or not humanity is worthy to survive, and to continue. And it's sort of the first time that there's a very explicit announcement that Siverian is caught up in something, in a story that is vastly bigger than anything he really thought he was doing before, and that they call themselves aquasters, which is a kind of like a ghost, but they are intelligent beings that are just taking these forms from Siverian's head. But it's not like they're actually Malrubius or Triscali, although now they're probably mixed up with them a little bit because as we found out in other places in these books, memories of people may actually have a little bit of the real people in them. So if they're made flesh, then they may just be a little bit of the actual real person.
Interesting.
Which is probably one reason why, Triskley is very, keeps looking back at Seiferian and sort of keeps having this sort of very loyal reaction to him. So that's kind of what happens here, is that all of a sudden we literally, and Wolf even describes it this way, as a kind of deus ex machina, the old Greek thing, that it's like the god and the machine comes down and sort of pulls him out of the chaos that he was in and explains, sort of just gives a sort of huge plot dump on him, saying, hey, here's what's really going on. Hope you can deal with that. Bye. And then they leave. And it is incredibly complicated. It's incredibly weird. When you first read it, you have no idea whether or not you can believe what these characters are saying. No idea really who they are, who they represent, where they would be coming from, and what it actually means that Seiferian is caught up in all of this thing. But I think the best explanation, at least in the thing that I think most people probably agree on, is that, at the very least, Malrubius is one of the otherworldly beings that is connected somehow to the beings that are going to test humanity, and is briefly sort of explaining the sort of mechanics of the situation that led to the test.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. James, anything you want to add?
Oh, well, no, it sounds pretty good. Only to say that, so a black hole is obviously everything, sucks everything in, right? It's a singularity, sucks everything in. What goes in, what happens on the other side of that? Well, in the theory that began to be postulated in the early 60s was, well, on the other side of a black hole is a white hole or a white fountain, and where all of that material flies out. And, and there's even now there's discussion about that perhaps black holes bloom whole universes on the other side. But in this case, it's a white fountain. And later in Earth of the New Sun, it's more carefully explained that in a black hole, all of the material flows in one universe, and then in the next universe, it flows out. And so that's where the white hole, and somehow, although it's not explained here, Seiferian, if he takes the test, will become the new sun. He'll become the white fountain. And what that means, that's not clear in this book.
Interesting. So, officially, in the beginning, there was not going to be a fifth book. There was not going to be an Earth of the New Sun. So Gene Wolfe was going to end it here, telling people that, Seiferian later on will go to the stars to represent humanity in this trial. And if he succeeds in this trial...
That was the request, Well, that was the request, right? That was the request from the editor. Hey, this kind of ends precipitously. Why don't you just add a little paragraph to say that Seiferian goes on, he takes the test and brings the new sun, da-da-da-da. That was their idea.
Yeah.
And Wolfe said, oh, well, no, you can't do that. Apparently he had a lot in his mind about what goes on after that. And he says, what he said was, if you want that, that's a whole novel. And so they actually cut a deal to about shortly before Citadel of Claw of the Conciliator came out. And apparently Wolfe had the first draft written before the last volume of Citadel of the Autarch came out. But there were other requirements and restrictions and whatever provisos, so they didn't actually come out until 87, I think.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, which is almost, I think, 10 years after the final.
Right?
About
a little less than 5 years.
Oh, okay. My bad. So,
but in the time being, it's worth noting. In the time being, there were 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know, 4 novels that came out between he started the Soldier of the Mist and Soldier of Arete basically because the other one was being held up. So he did a bunch of short stories. So I mean, he didn't just sit around drumming his fingers during this period.
Yeah. Interesting. Also, for those who didn't read Earth of the New Sun yet, everything that you might expect from a trial, it's different. Okay, what you are going to read is completely different. Because I remember when I first read The Earth of the New Sun, looking for answers. Yeah, I got some, but also so many more questions. This is what you are going to expect from a Gene Wolfe book or from a Gene Wolfe series. But yeah, so on the topic, we are on the topic, and I need both of your opinions, please. Do you think that Earth of the New Sun is an important addition and a must-read as part of the Book of the New Sun series? This is for all the listeners, and I think it's because also it might be going to be translated in the future as part of the series. So, what do you think, gentlemen?
I think that Wolfe was doing something very different in the Book of the New Sun versus Earth of the New Sun. I think in Book of the New Sun, the shadow of the torturer, I think that the placement of the first Seiferian reveal at the very end of the novel suggests to us what this novel is about. And it's about the life of the first Seiferian. Dr. Tallis's play is about the life of the first Seiferian, and it's very similar to our Seiferians that we have in this book, but it's not the same. But this is a story about Seiferian and his world that live in the shadow of what the first Seiferian did. It is the first Seiferian who brings the new sun. It is the first Seiferian who was the conciliator in our Seiferian's world. It was he who was Apu Punchao. And so consequently, when we say that Seiferian is in the shadow of the torturer, that is the torturer in whose shadow Seiferian is. In Earth of the New Sun, Wolfe is doing something very different. All of that goes away. The first Seiferian has ceased to be an influence. He is going on to take the test himself, and he's going on to and he's going to do he does a bunch of things that lead a lot of readers to think that this is a time loop story, and it's not a time loop story. And I don't think it is a time loop story. I should say, not that it isn't a time loop, but I don't think it is a time loop story. And I think that all of these things that Seiferian experiences, many of them are exactly what happened to the first Seiferian, but not necessarily everything. And so they're slightly different. So when we talk about Earth of the New Sun, we can go into things that I think are different, but I should say that is highly contested. So
interesting.
Consequently, the Earth of the New Sun feels different. It feels, it's less pensive. It's
the
also,
style is totally different, and I think it's really as much the style that often turns people off of it more than anything else, because Seiferian has obviously very distinctive voice, lots of sort of philosophical digressions and weird rambles and whatnot, whereas Earth of the New Sun is really just told straightforwardly, even incredibly quickly, as just like X did X, X did X, X did X.
And more straightforward, right?
So, the prose is more straightforward, but in doing that, he actually makes all kinds of things really confusing. Because for example, there's a scene where there's a robot that Seiferian is falling from, and we're all about spoilers here, but he's basically falling with this robot. And it turns out the robot is actually armor, like a kind of armor that you can wear. And he realizes this, but what happens is when he tries to sneak inside the robot so that when he falls, the robot's armor will protect him, he doesn't realize that part of the armor is that it's supposed to somehow meld with the person's own brain. And so the narrator doesn't explicitly acknowledge that, except all of a sudden you have him talking about saying things like, and then my right arm punched me. And then, but so he's sort of like shifted into being both this robot who's fighting himself and himself. But he's getting all confused where it's like it's the robot arm punching him, but it feels like his arm now that's doing it. And it's all it's back and forth. But so the narrator doesn't even acknowledge that something weird like that is going on. And honestly, when I first read it, I probably missed it. Like it's the kind of thing that I may not have even necessarily noticed at first, but that happens for, a good page and a half or something like that. And so that compression of the style really makes some things really hard to understand. That one is pretty actually straightforward when you go back and look at it. But there are other things about characters and just trying to get a description of what's going on, like this weird part when he goes to the Brook Madrigal, which is this weird interworldly place, and then he meets a fairy. But it's all told very matter-of-factly as just like, yep, and then there was this tiny fairy creature that looked like the big angel that I knew and whatnot, and I'm by a river, and it's a cute little river, but anyway, I'm just going to walk over here. And and you're just like, okay. But so that the compression of it, it's kind of that fun Wolf thing that Wolf will often do, which is show you something incredibly strange, but nothing about the narrative seems to admit that it's strange. And it can just totally throw you off.
Yeah, it doesn't answer all the questions you think it's going to answer when you go straight to it. And it spins off a lot of mysteries of its own.
Yes.
I actually found it very difficult compared to Book of the New Sun. I mean, really? I know I bounced off it the very first time I read it, and came back because I just wanted to know. But it was... to me, it just wasn't as straightforwardly fun or engaging in the same way that Book of the New Sun was, from the world and the characters. Or even with Book of the New Sun, even when I didn't know what was going on, I was still, fascinated by trying to figure it out and whatnot. Earth of the New Sun just had a very different sort of vibe about it, and I really like it now, but I mainly because of that voice, which is what I know catches a lot of people. You don't have the same Severion's voice, and I think a lot of people miss that in that book.
Also, maybe the big part is that during the series of the Book of the New Sun, the initial series, you are trying to explore and understand the world of Earth. But in the Earth of the New Sun, most of it you are on a spaceship, and then you are in that whatever that planet,
and
then
or
there's
another dimension.
Another dimension, and there's a very weird like the trial that happens there is very different than your idea of how a trial should be. It's completely different.
There's still a huge debate over what the actual trial is.
Exactly.
Like which part of the story is supposed to be a trial.
Old characters starts to appear in Severyan imagination, or maybe not imagination, as you explained, Craig, earlier, that these characters, they are the idea of the man, but also they are part of themselves. So they are mix of both. So it is a weird book. What's interesting also is that it's very divisive to the point where some people say it is our favorite novel from the New Sun series. Some people say, "Oh, don't read it. Don't you ever read the Earth of the New Sun? It will ruin the main series." So it's either this or that. It's also it's good in its own way, right?
Yeah, I like it. You have to go in and release all of your expectations about what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I still, to be honest, I don't necessarily think of it as, I still think of Book of the New Sun as the 4 books. Earth of the New Sun is absolutely part of the same story. It's Severian's story. But I do feel like as just sort of an artwork, the 4 books can stand alone. Absolutely. Yeah. They don't need Earth of the New Sun. I think it adds to it to have it there, but Siverian is set out to tell a story of how he got to the throne, and that's what he does. And the whole, at least in the way that Book of the New Sun is told, all the stuff about the trial and the hierogrammates and all this other worldly stuff is more just sort of background to the world of his personal story of how he got to the throne. Right. And so it's, you know, does that mean it's the real story and that's what Earth of the New Sun tells? Maybe not. I mean, the actual story of Book of the New Sun is how Siverian went from an apprentice little torturer to becoming the, you know, ruler of the world. And yeah, there's all this other stuff that's going to happen to him after, but it tells that story. Yeah. And you learn about a crazy world, a really fascinating world in the process. So.
Yeah, in Lord of the Rings, at the end of the novel, there's a big long appendix describing a whole bunch of things, and I think of Earth of the New Sun as essentially the same thing for the Book of the New Sun, but it's his Wolf's appendix, so it just leads to more confusion and debate.
Yeah. I mean, you can call it what you call a DLC for a video game. Like you have the game, and then you have this expansion. It will expand the story, but the main game is enough by itself.
Right.
You know? Also, I think the different style, it's only a testament of Gene Wolfe's range, right? Like, I can change my style, and look what I can do. It's an experimentation. I mean, I think if the Earth of the New Sun was just like another Book of the New Sun, same style, same everything, people at the end of the day will feel bored. Like, oh, this is more of the same. Right. But here he decided to do a new thing, and also I believe we can see the same thing in Short and the Long Sun. He did something different there also.
Yeah.
So obviously he's not a writer who likes to do the same thing again and again. He likes to experiment. He likes to try new things, and he has a big range. And I think we can all agree on that. Whether we think that Earth of the New Sun is a good book or not, objectively. Yeah. Let's get back to the final events, let's say, of the Citadel of the Autarch. Later on, he goes back to the guild, essentially, but before we go to that point, he goes to the beach at some point, and he found that around it that it is full of these flowers, thorns. Yeah. And this is where he gets it, that all the things that happened where he thought that it is the claw, it was never the claw. It's just a normal, so it is him, right? But as we said before when we discussed the earlier series, it's not even only him, because there is bigger power in the background, and we are talking here about miracles that we will never understand. Why the claw sometimes resurrects somebody or heals somebody, and other times it do nothing. So there is no clear law how does that work. Right? Or do we understand it now, gentlemen, because we are at the end of the series? Or is it still vague?
We are still fighting over it. I think that in chapter 34, there's a chapter. It's the title is The Key to the Universe, and I think it is very important. I think it is very important to understand. It's really the only mechanic for time travel that is explicitly described, which is to say, it's the origin of the hieradules, the hierogrammates, who are going to take him and have him do the test. And we learn that that the universes expand to an extreme and then collapse, and in reverse of a big bang, and then it just keeps doing that over and over and over. And each time it does it, it's almost exactly like the time before, but each time it's slightly changed after and because of that, in a previous universe iteration, during the time of humanity's galactic empire, they came upon a little animal that they could uplift. The idea is that apparently that humanity is the only sentient animal in the galaxy that they've found, and so they uplift this creature to be a companion to them, and they make them just as they raise them according to their own ideals of what an ideal person, a good person, should be. And then what happened to those people? Siverian says, I don't know if it was our fathers who did it, or we who did it, or our descendants, which is to say, I don't know if this happened in the past for, relative to my universe, or ours are the same time or after, but the humans disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. And I think I do know what happened to them. I think they're those statues, but that's another labyrinth that we shouldn't drop into.
You mentioned that, by the way. This is the evidence that I don't forget anything you say, gentlemen. You mentioned that when we were talking about Jonas and Seyferian being in the house of absolute garden,
right?
And you said, yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
So these uplifted animals, these uplifted beings, continue to grow and expand, become more powerful, until they reach a time when the universe is very old, and all of the stars, and it's continued to expand until you can't even see any stars in the sky. And then when that happens, they figure out how to escape the universe. They go to this outer universe and build a planet, and from that location they look at all of the universe iterations. And Seyferian says, and then they found us. And then so they start this project. They put a black hole in the sun, and the idea being that humanity is either going to be better. This is okay. I'm drifting off from what we actually know. We know that Seyferian says that we tortured them into sentience. They're going to torture us in turn and make us better. And what it appears to me is that the idea is that they want to make humans better, so that when they do make them, the hierodules, when they do make them, the hierodules themselves will be better. And so basically that's the
so it's a cycle of lifting each other up.
Just a cycle of constantly improving, and Seyferian is part of that, because he has to bring the new sun. If he doesn't bring the new sun, then Earth just becomes a snowball. It's only if he brings a new sun that these hierogrammates can actually be born and created.
We can get from that it is a continuous failed experiment. That is because there is multiple Seyferians before, right? So we are trying the same experiment until one of Seyferians succeeds, essentially.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's not there's no guarantee. No one seems to have expected the first Seyferian to arrive, and Seyferian is a little perplexed at how the first Seyferian didn't drown, because the only reason Seyferian didn't drown is because the first Seyferian sent a mermaid, an Undine, into the past to save him. So the question is, well, how come he didn't drown?
Oh my God!
And that's a kind of a mystery. And there is some suggestions that maybe all the previous Seyferians before the first Seyferian did drown.
This is why at some point we have to prevent him drowning. So he instructed essentially one of the giants to save him. And the beginning of the first novel, Shadow of the Torturer, he was going to drown. Okay, so one of the weird things happened where now I think at the end of the series it's not as surprised because now we know Seyferian. He suddenly said, I went back, I fetched Valeria, and now she is my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Why her?
We've only heard about Severia, other than the first book, when he met her, when he was following a tricycle. We only heard about her maybe once or twice for the whole series. Like he always talks about how he loves Dorcas and Yolenta is so beautiful and Aegea is amazing and all of these ladies, and he's ranking them and he's telling like this one is good in that and this one, but he never talked about Valeria. And now suddenly he said, yeah, by the way, she's now my wife.
Yeah, James once went back and looked at all the passages where he mentions her, sort of in those comparisons. And what's interesting is that as the books go on, he mentions her in much more sort of romantic terms each time. Like at first, she might just be like in a list of characters. Then there comes a point where, you know, that mysterious girl. And then it gets to the point where he sort of has these longing, sort of almost longing memories for. And then finally at the end, she's
the most beautiful woman he's ever
seen. And so something I've been trying forever to make sense of that. Like what's going on with that? And we've seen people come up with interesting theories about how that's sort of proof of different Seiferians that are replacing each other. And, you know, we finally get to the one that was totally in love with her, whereas the first one wasn't, or something like that. And I'm not really sure. And I still don't know exactly what it was about Valeria that was supposed to be the thing that he felt drawn to look for. But if I had to guess, I feel like it has something to do with the fact that he got lost in the tunnels before he met her. And James and I have talked all the time about how when Seiferian gets lost, weird things happen. And it does seem to indicate some kind of special travel, whether it's actual time travel or whether it's dimensional travel or whether it's like skipping through different cycles of himself. I don't know. But when he sees her in the early part, it's one of the really sort of first times he really gets lost, and one of the first times that, you know, you might think he's set on some kind of weird path. And so maybe it has something to do with that. But I honestly, I truly can't say with any certainty what I think about Valeria, because I'm just not sure.
And also we don't know much about it. Like because he almost never talked about her. So we can't form a complete idea. Like I met
honestly,
this lady
never
in the
find
beginning
out much
of the book.
about her. Even we meet, you know, look, we're gonna meet her in the sequel. We don't really find out a whole lot about her. So
still a mystery.
Yeah.
And from that point, he is officially the autarch for the next 10 years, right? For the next 10 years, he will be the autarch. He will be the autarch, Siberian the Lame. And later on, after 10 years, he will go to the stars. And this is where the 5th book will start, which is the Earth of the New Sun. Did I miss anything here?
There are a lot of short stories that are related to all this, I guess.
Can we name them, Mr. James?
Yeah,
we have
okay.
the map and the cat, right?
Okay, there's the cat and the map and the God and His Man, which is a Brown Book story. And then Seiferian mentions a Brown Book story to the Kumeyan about how there are two armies with different uniforms, and they change their uniforms, but the war continues. The idea is that if they switched uniforms, and there would be peace, but the war continues. And so in Starwater Strains, he brings out the Empire of Foliage and Empires of Foliage and Flowers. For, let's see, what else? There's a secret Earth story, which in the so there is a secret Earth story in Starwater Strains called From the Cradle, and there's also a Brown Book story called The Boy Who Hooked the Sun. And then in Castle of Days, Wolf, there's a section called Castle of the Otter, and Wolf wrote a whole book of little essays about the Book of the New Sun, which I personally have found very illuminating. There's a book called Shadows of the New Sun, Wolf on Writing, Writers on Wolf, and it's edited. But there's another Shadows of the New Sun, which is a bunch of stories that were in honor of Wolf. And so you should, if you're trying to find Shadows of the New Sun, Wolf on Writing, Writers on Wolf, you have to be sure not to make that mistake. Wolf on Writing and Writers on Wolf is basically a collection of his interviews. And that can be really useful. But if you can't get that, and it's I think you can. I think they actually did. You can actually buy it in electronic form now. But if you can't get that, then at least look up the interview with Robert Fraser in the 1983 Thrust Spring Edition. You can get that on archive.org, which I think is really the most useful interview that Wolf ever gave if you're interested in the Book of the New Sun.
Interesting.
And then, you want to go ahead and read the Book of the New Sun again, I think, after you've knocked those out. And then you can go ahead and read Earth of the New Sun. I wouldn't rush into Earth of the New Sun. As I say, I think it's not going to give you the answers you think it's going to give you. It gives you more puzzles. I think I always recommend start with the last chapter of the novel and then read the whole thing again. And then you can read.
I also want to. Sure, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Oh, then there's the Book of the Long Sun, and in the Innocents Aboard collection, there's a Brown Book story, The Woman Whose Rolling Pin is the Sun, and there's also a short story that has to do with the Book of the Short Sun, but not directly. It's a story where there's a bird in the book of the Long Sun, the Book of the Short Sun, and so basically it's his little story. And then there's a Book of the Short Sun, and then Evil Guest is not part of any of the books of Solar Cycle, but I do feel like it's Wolf's novelization of Jolenta. What if she had her own novel?
Interesting. I want to add also that any of these books is so easy to find in electronic form, as you said. Like I searched earlier for, you remember when we talked about the endangered species? I found it only in Amazon America. So, but I so easily bought it because I have Kindle. So many people have Kindle now. So I just bought it. So it's so easier now to get the books that you wanted. So yeah, I will be checking all of these, and I think most of the listeners that will be interested to read more. I have multiple questions regarding the short and the long sun, and I think you both gentlemen read them, right?
Yeah,
Craig?
I have. Although I'm far more obsessed with it than Craig is.
Oh, really? Both? The long, we are talking about the long or the short sun?
We've had a discussion several times about that I had mentioned that that the Book of the New Sun isn't even is maybe my fifth favorite Wolf novel.
Yeah, that's my second question.
And the question was, and I said, "What's your favorite?" I said, "Well, most days it's probably the Book of the Long Sun." And
okay. I'll be reading the Long Sun, by the way, because I told you before, I love the idea of the generational ship,
right,
even though it's not a traditional generational spaceship. It's a comet, but this is a different story. My question, which is we're gonna answer it quickly, as I don't want to take much of your time, but are the short and the long sun connected clearly to the new sun? Are there shared characters or shared themes, or is it very loose, like it's only by the names? What is happening
There
here?
is one, in the Book of the Long Sun, there is one shared character. And in the Book of the Short Sun, there is also one shared character.
I think in the Long Sun is Typhon.
In the Long Sun it's Typhon. In the Book of the Short Sun, it's Seiferian. But I think, in my opinion, they are far more integrated with each other than they suggest. It should make everyone wonder, in my opinion, why is this in Seiferian's story? Why is it?
Yeah.
Why use Typhon as part of this story when Wolf has written? As you know, he's written a generation ship story before. Why did there's no reason why it had to be Typhon who sent out the world.
Yeah, but so they are absolutely connected. plot wise, like if you're looking for a sequel to Book of the New Sun, it's not like a sequel to the Book of the New Sun. Totally different feel, totally different writing style. Even though it is the same universe, it's nothing like the Commonwealth and nothing like Earth that you're going to be experiencing. But it has its own very separate, incredible charm to it. Long Sun is, like James said, it's great. Short Sun captures a lot of people who really get into it. But I also think Short Sun is in many ways much more opaque to what's
I
going
believe
on.
you said on the Earth list, Craig, well, this was just a bridge too far.
When I first read it, I really did. I didn't even finish the third book because I had hit a point where I'm like, I literally don't know what's going on, really. You know, I can sort of follow the basic plot of these people are together walking to get to this place. But beyond that, I kind of didn't know what was going on. And I've remedied that since then. I have read it many times. But there's still a lot of stuff about Short Sun that I don't particularly understand. Thematically, I think I have a much better handle on it now. But as far as the sort of intricacies of really weird detailed plots and changing identities and stuff like that, I don't have the best sense of it. And I'll be honest,
it
just
didn't
because to me
invoke
it is
the
hard.
same discussion as the New Sun also, for some reason.
It kind of, for the obsessive people, probably more. For the people who really get into it, even more. It's just that, well, first of all, it's much more closely tied to the Book of the Long Sun than Book of the Long Sun is to
the New Sun.
The New Sun. And it really is an extension of the Book of the Long Sun story in a lot of ways. So there's a sense in which they all take place in the same universe, but Long Sun and Short Sun you can see as part of the same story, even one character's story. So there's that just makes it harder to pick up Short Sun because you got to be already 8-9 books invested in a series.
Yeah, I
and
feel
then you're going to read these things.
So what is your
but
favorite?
For the people who put it out, they love it. For me, it's always been New Sun. It's always been those 4 books.
Okay. Yeah. And we are talking here. What about if we are talking about the whole?
His entire
still
corpus,
the New Sun, right?
For me, still New Sun. Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
James,
Sun,
it's the Long Sun, right?
Yeah, most days it's probably the Long Sun. The I understand why it's called the Book of the New Sun is called Wolfe's magnum opus. All the things there's you come upon his novels and I like this that Wolfe did here. I like this that Wolfe did there. In the Book of the New Sun, somehow he managed to capture everything that people like from his entire, as they call it, the oeuvre, his entire body of work. He managed to include everything in there. And I get why people like it. I like the Book of the Long Sun because I feel I really, even Book of the New Sun, I probably enjoy the structure of Wolfe's narrative storytelling. And this Book of the Long Sun is super, super structured. And the themes are very hard themes and novel themes, and it's kind of amazed me that he actually managed to pull them off. People like the Book of the Short Sun. I think. I mean, no one really, I think, claims to understand the Book of the Short Sun, but even people who love it for its prose. It's kind of a Wolfe. People began to feel like Wolfe had gone away from his obvious, craftsmanship in his prose. He got to be more interested in the way people talk and the way the voices that they produce. And so they felt like, well, it's too bad that Wolfe doesn't know how to do that old kind of writing that he used to do. But in the Book of the Short Sun, Wolfe showed that he can just pull that out whenever he wants, because that's exactly what he did. It's the same kind of prosy, a lot of introspection going on, that kind of thing.
Okay. The last question, and I will start with you, Craig. For those who wants to read something that is not the Book of the New Sun after the Book of the New Sun, like for other writers, what do you suggest? Is there any writers? Not you don't have to name the novels. Maybe the writers themselves, if you want. It's your call.
If you're looking for something Wolf-like, is that like if you liked Wolf and you want something like that?
Yeah.
One of the standard answers that other people give and that I'll give to is Little Big by John Crowley. Different way that it's complex, but has a vibe that I know lots and lots and lots of people who like Gene Wolfe also like John Crowley, and not just Little Big, but all of his stuff, but especially Little Big, which is sort of his Book of the New Sun. It's his main sort of thing that he's known for. That would be one. The other name that often comes up in connection with Wolfe a lot, even though it's an incredibly different style in some ways and very similar in others, is R.A. Lafferty, who some people connect him because he was a Catholic as well, but also his stories are all these wild sort of tall tales. Then they're very much like if you had someone who wrote Brown Book stories that were just a little more straightforward, but not too much. That's somewhat what Lafferty wrote like. But he's someone else who I know. The hard thing about Lafferty is very little of his stuff is in print anymore, but whereas you can find Crowley stuff all over the place. But those two are the two writers who probably more often than any others are sort of the people who like Wolfe also like them. Is very common.
Interesting. James?
Well, one writer that it's a very different style from Wolfe, but it constantly gets mentioned is Jack Vance's Dying Earth. He has the complete. You can get them; they are collected. The version I have is the complete Dying Earth.
Oh, we have them here. Believe me, I have it.
Yeah.
It's so easy to pick up. Actually, we have them here in Saudi Arabia. You can order them from Amazon Saudi, and which I did. But it's one volume that has almost all the stories that comes from the Dying Earth, the novellas and the short stories. Yeah, and I think Gene Wolfe stated before that they are the main influence, right?
When he was a kid, he said that for him for a while the Dying Earth was his book of gold. I believe he said he could feel, or at least he said he would one time he could put his hand on the Dying Earth and feel the magic coming out of it. There's also a book called The Songs of Dying Earth, which is a bunch of famous writers writing stories in homage of Jack Vance, and Robert Silverberg's is definitely the best in that collection. Other than that, I would always recommend Rudyard Kipling, the Jungle Books. There's one of the stories that Sevierian reads in the Brown Book is kind of a mishmash drawn from the Jungle Books, and it's kind of I always think it has kind of a very similar feel. It's got a lot of little poems in there. It's various stories in the same world. So in that way, it's a lot like the Fifth Head of Cerberus, with a general novel in the spaces between them. Let's see what else. I always recommend C.S. Lewis's Till We Have Faces. That's also another one that has kind of a similar vibe going on.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I think also people sometimes talk about terra ignota when they are talking about. I mean, if we are talking about modern novels, that is, because I think that Ada Palmer, as we talked about before, and by the way, I watched your interview with her. It was beautiful. She said
I loved it.
Yeah, and she said multiple times that Gene Wolfe is a big influence on Terra Ignota. You can find these elements of Gene Wolfe writing in it.
Right.
So this is what if people are interested in the same Gene Wolfe style, so they will go to the rest of the Gene Wolfe work, or his short stories, or what we just stated about similar writing styles or influences by Gene Wolfe. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with me in this journey.
Thank you.
We truly appreciate
thanks
it.
again.
We took much
Thanks
of your
again for
time.
having us.
I know again that you have your own responsibilities. It means a lot to me. It means the world to me. You gave me this time, and I'm pretty sure it means the world to the readers. And I don't want to pressure you guys, but I'm happy to do this anytime you want in the future. Anytime it's convenient. Maybe we can do one video about the whole book of the New Sun. Maybe we can do something about the Earth of the New Sun. Maybe later on we can do something about the Long Sun if I read it and finished it. It always adds something to me, and I'm sure it adds a lot of things also to whoever is listening. Thank you so much again.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having us.